Okay, good morning, this is Rabbi Shlomo Furst here, Yeshiva Tsama Nafshi, beginning of the week. Last week of the official Zman, getting close to Pesach, but we're going to first do Pirkei Avos right now, and then we'll be turning our attention in the second shir to the Mishnah Berurah, which was Pesach. Pirkei Avos, we'll start with on our sheet number 1, just review the Mishnah, and then we'll jump down to number 8 and 9. Yeah, Phil, can you begin?
Which one?
Start with the first one, number 1. That's the quote of the Mishnah.
משנת מסכת אבות, פרק א', משנה ג', אנטיוכוס איש סוחו קיבל לשמעון הצדיק, הוא היה אומר, אל תהיו כעבדים משמשים את הרב, על מנת לקבל פרס, אלא הבוא כעבדים משמשים את הרב שלו, על מנת לקבל פרס, והיא מורה שמיים ועליכם.
So that's basically the mimer of Antigonus. Take a look at number 8. We're going to now see what the Rashi had brought down, the pasuk, which the Psifta is going to quote and explain in a little bit more arichas. Go ahead, number 8. That's also known as the Medrash Lekha code. It's known as two different things. The Psifta is Utrasa, that's one name that's given, and also Lekha code is also given as another name. That's basically a medrash.
פרק א', שנאמר דברים וא' אשר מצפה היום לעשותם ולא לעולם הבא, מכאן ואמרו חז"ל, העולם הזה דומה לערב שבת והעולם הבא דומה לשבת. מי שטרח בערב שבת אוכל בשבת, ומי שלא טרח בערב שבת מאכיל ערב שבת, מערב שבת, מאכל יאכל.
Where's he going to eat from? If he doesn't prepare an Erev Shabbos, what's he going to be able to eat from on Shabbos? So that's basically we discussed this a bit last time, that's what Chazal are giving us an example that this world and our activities in this world are supposed to be devoted, just like you're devoting your energies on Erev Shabbos for the preparations for Shabbos. Likewise, when it comes to Shabbos, everything should be there prepared for you, just like that. When you get to the next world, everything should be prepared and ready for you. Right? That's what this world is all about. Take a look now in Rabbeinu Bachai, that's number 9. He's going to explain the same pasuk.
רבנו בחיי דברים, פרק ז', אשר אנוכי מצווה היום לעשותם. דרשו חז"ל, הראו ונכבד, היום לעשותם, ולא היום ליטול שקרם. Schara.
Right, meaning there's no question about it. There is schar. You definitely get schar, but the schar is not to be received in this world. Right? That's what we'll be discussing a little bit more later in this week about Tzaddik and Bisis. They made a mistake based on what they were hearing from Antigonus their Rebbe. They thought there's no schar at all, but he never meant to say that. He just meant to say that, as Chazal are darshaning for us here, that this world is not the place where you get your reward. Right?
היום לעשותם ולא למחר לעשותם. והכוונה כי העולם הזה זמן מעשה ולא זמן השכר.
This is the time where you do your activities, and it's not the time for your reward. It's not the place, it's not the time.
העולם הבא זמן שכר ולא זמן מעשה.
And conversely, in Olam Haba, that's the time for the reward, but and also it's not the time for Maisa. Meaning there's no more. That's it. Your complete absolute effort has to be done in this world, and there's no effort, and there's no action, there's no possibility of adding on to anything that you've done, right? In the next world, what you can do is a person through his actions in this world can set things into motion, right? That will continue to accrue for him rewards in the next world, right? For example, let's say a person has a Talmud, right? That's a Talmud. Let's say take the Vilna Gaon. He had a Talmud, the Rav Chaim Volozhin, right? So the Talmud, Rav Chaim Volozhin, he made other Talmudim. Right? So that is increasing more Torah, increasing more mitzvahs.
So and that's all what's upstairs, he gets sachar.
Right, it's all accruing, it's all developing and continuing onward and onward based on his the repercussions of his actions in this world, right? So that's the Rabbi Victor Miller said. He said there are several times, the Gemara speaks about this, several times a person is judged, right? Classically, a person is judged on Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, right? Erev Rosh Chodesh is also a time when a person is judged. Erev Shabbos is a person when he's judged, right? There's also going to be a Yom HaGadol Noira. There's going to be a tremendous, absolute final judgment of the whole universe. The whole cosmos is going to be judged at the final end of whatever's going to be at that time. So Rabbi Midrash asks the question, what do we need to have a final judgment of everything at the end of time? Why do we need that? So Rabbi Midrash says as follows. He says, a person in this world, he certainly can't see it. And even in the next world, he can only see it limitedly. Because that's what we said. A person can set certain things into motion, right? And maybe, for example, I'll give you a famous story, you may have heard of it. During about 40, I don't know, maybe 40 years or so, there was a little war, lasted a few weeks, called the Falklands War. The Falkland Islands were off the coast, they're still there, off the coast of Argentina. For some reason, they were owned by the British, right? And there always was, the Argentinians didn't like it because it's very close to their territory. And they always thought, I guess, that they should own it, right? But nevertheless, the British flag was flying happily for many decades there. And one day, about 40 years ago, they decided to attack. The Argentinians attacked from their mainland and went to take over the island. So the British sent troops, boats. They sent a number of boats. The Argentinians bombed out one of their boats coming, ships. Gave them a rough time for a while, and then eventually the British won. They kicked the Argentinians back. Whatever. Okay, fine. In the midst of that battle, right? In the midst of that battle, there was a Jew on the British side, and there was a Jew on the Argentinian side. So this British soldier had knocked down this Argentine, right, and was about to bayonet him to death. So he sees this Jew on the ground. He didn't know he was a Jew. He was dressed as an enemy. He puts his hands to his eyes and says, Shema. Right? So he says, you're a Jew? He says, yeah. So he drags him and shoves him under some bushes. Right? He says, you stay here, and then that's it. And so the guy lived. Right?
Did you see him after the war?
I don't know if they ever met after the war. I don't know. But how did this? What happened? That's the end of the story. What was the beginning of the story? This Argentinian fellow, right, was once on a plane. And he was sitting next to a religious Jew, right? So I guess it was a transcontinental, whatever. They're over the Atlantic. So it came time to go to sleep. So the guy said Kriyash Malamit, and so this other fellow sitting next to him was a non-religious fellow from Argentina. He asked this fellow, this other Jew, what are you doing? He said, I'm saying Shema. He said, what is this? What is it saying Shema? I didn't even know what Shema in Israel. I didn't know what Shema is. He says, Shema is something we do once in the morning, once at night. We also say it before we go to sleep, and we also say it before we die. Before a Jew's about to die, you're supposed to say Shema. And then, okay, with that, maybe they talked a little bit more, a little less, and they got off the plane eventually, went their separate ways. I never know if they, as far as I don't know if they ever met this again in their lives. But this Argentinian fellow, that's the only thing he knew about Yiddishkeit. So years later, he's in the army fighting against the British, and it comes time for him to, he was going to check out of this world. So put his hands to his eyes, like he saw this Jew doing on the plane. He started saying Shema, and it saved his life, right? So this fellow on the plane could have no concept of what he was telling this Argentinian Jew, how it would eventually save his life. And whether he became a Baal Tshuva or not, I'm not even sure, but whatever. So you see that this one conversation the fellow had on the plane saved another Jew's life, and it could be, who knows what's going to come out, what's coming out even to now. So Rabbi Midrash itself said, we don't have any conception, we can't even see what the ramifications of all the things we do in this world are going to be. Even within our own lifetime we can't see. And you can't even see that within the context of the whole limited span of time. Only at the end of time can you see the absolute full consequences of all your actions. So that's where there has to be a complete, absolute din at the end of time, that everyone will be able to be judged based on all the consequences of all the things they've ever done, said, or thought in the time of their lives. Because you never know what you're going to set off. You can save this one Argentinian student's life. Maybe he becomes a Baal Tshuva, he becomes frum, or marries a woman, they have children, the fellow becomes, his sons and daughters marry and have children, and they continue, and they do all kinds of mitzvahs and all kinds of good things in the world, and you never know where it's going to lead to. So the only time you're going to be able to see that, right, is when the end of time finally comes, and then you can wrap everything up together, and everyone can see what their final, absolute, complete, true reward is going to be. Yeah.
That person's working on himself to combat this. The dinner power didn't affect him as much as...
The what?
Does didn't have complete power of someone who's trying to become a better person? Does the power didn't have the power of the person?
I know, you wait that to hold on to that, so that's... Our person's judged, the person should have Yerushalyim. That's what it says here. You have to feel that HaKodesh Baruch Hu has the power to judge, right? And yeah, Mora is his fear.
That's what he's asking if it's Pachat Shamayim, if it's going to be Safed.
Yeah, it makes it has an effect. It has an effect. Certainly has an effect. Yeah. Okay, so therefore there's going to be the final reward. That's where the next world is for the reward. And but then, as I said, even though a person himself can't do things, right? But even after he's gone from this world, many of the things he sets off and sets into action, he was the catalyst. Whatever he set into action, when he was the catalyst for something in this world, it was the Torah. When it works in the opposite way too. If he started something off bad, and something bad happens, and there's all kinds of bad kinds, he's going to also have to. There'll be a whole check and balance list of all the things that were good and all the things were so not so good. But so things can actually happen and accrue to him in the next world. But in terms of his own actions, he's limited only to his lifetime in this world. That's why we should really try and do as much as we possibly can under all circumstances. Okay, let's go back to the number 9, Rabbeinu B'chai.
Time is sliding.
What?
Time is sliding.
Rav Shlomo says, when he says the world says time is money. We say time is life. Time is life. That's time. It's life. It's your life. Time is life. Gotta use it. Gotta use it. Yeshiva Zitzal, when he was 100 years old, his son's 100th birthday. When he was 100 years old, he spoke upstairs in the yeshiva to the Americans for about 13, 14 minutes. Right? And he started speaking with me. He said, today's my birthday, and I'm 100 years old. And he starts crying. He says, I'm praying to Hashem, he should give me more time in this world. I have so much more to accomplish. A person 100 years old, he's crying to Hashem, he should have more life, that he has more to accomplish. So how many people are 100 years, how many people live to be 100, period? And how many people who are at 100 years old still are thinking about accomplishing things in life? They have to accomplish. That's just an insight into his godness. He had so many, not for himself, for Klal Yisrael. Everything was devoted to the Jewish people. It was completely devoted to the Jewish people. Okay, number 9 again. That's Rabbeinu B'chai. That's in the Devarim. This is a similar pasuk to the pasuk that we had in Devarim Vav. It's very similar psukim, right? Might even be an actual repeat of the same phrase, to tell you the truth. Worthwhile. We'll try and understand it a bit. Yeah, go ahead.
You want to start from the beginning?
Yeah, we just 2 lines.
רבנו ב'chai דברים פרק ז' אשר אנוכי בצורך היום לעשותם דרש חז"ל עירובין מחפץ היום לעשותם ולא היום ליטול שכרם היום לעשותם ולא למחר לעשותם והכוונה כי העולם הזה אין העולם הזה זמן מעשה ולא זמן שכר העולם הבא זמן השכר ולא זמן מעשה והוא שרמז שלמה הוא אמר בקהלת ט' כי אין מעשה וחשבון ודת וחוכמה ושואל אשר אתה הולך
ושואל, that's a reference to the grave, right? That there's not any ma'aseh, there's no activity, right? Lo cheshbon, there's no like thought process, no das, there's no understanding, or chokman, there's no wisdom, b'shol, there's no, all these things are gone. When a person's in the grave, all these things are gone. Asher hu holach shama, that the person, everyone's got to go there. You all got to go there.
ירצה לומר כי אחר המיטה, אלו רצה לעשות מצווה ולהשלים מה שחסר כאן, או להתעסק בדבר הרשות לחשבונות ושאר עסקי גוף, אין זה בידו.
That if a person after a person's death, right, if he wants to do mitzvahs and to complete what he was lacking in this world, or let's say he wants to be involved with some kind of a some type of davar rishus, something which is neither a mitzvah nor an avera, the cheshbonos, or something with his thoughts, which had to do with his goof. Ain't biyado. He doesn't have the ability. He has no ability.
But other people can help him fix it.
Yeah.
So you just said that.
That's right.
If he built himself something, so he's helping, somebody can help him.
Sure, and also there's a halacha, mitzvah l'kayim divrei hameis. There's a special mitzvah, right, on the part of the family and those people who are close to a person who's deceased, that if he left certain requests, whether they were spoken out, written, or whatever, even just he happened to know that this is what he wanted to be done, it's a special mitzvah to fulfill the words of the deceased. Yeah.
All right. We just said we lose characteristics, we lose chokmah, we lose wisdom.
Yeah,
What does that mean?
Okay,
exactly?
what does it mean? It says there's a pasuk in Kelis, ki ein ma'aser v'cheshbon v'das v'chacham v'shoyim. There's no ma'aser, there's no activity, meaning the body, you cannot move the body anymore. Cheshbon, meaning like cheshbon, there's no thought process, right?
Okay.
And das, there's no understanding, v'chacham, there's no wisdom v'shoyim. There's all these things are lacking. To really know the exact context of all these different things, you really need to see the pasuk with, say, Rashi and the other meforshim. If you want, I can look into it.
Well, I'm leading to another question.
Yeah, sure.
So my next question is if we lose these things,
Right.
I thought we go into Shemayim and we get to sit in the academies of great
Right.
sages, and how are we learning and doing all these things in Shemayim if we have no characteristics?
Okay. A very good question. The basic answer that I can give to you is as follows: everything that we know about the next world, to what Chazal tell us, is really only words using descriptions which we can relate to, right? Because the next world is completely spiritual, right? Which we can't really relate to that, because we are a physical body. Everything we understand and sense is through our physical body, right? So the experiences that we have there, it's a different dimension, right? It's like trying to explain to a fetus in the womb of his mother what it's like to walk around and do things in this world, to talk. He's not going to learn to talk for 2-3 years, right, after he gets into this world. He's not going to walk for another year before he gets into this world. How can he describe them, all these kind of things, right? Eating, right? Seeing things. You know, what the experience of the fetus is going through in terms of his experience as a fetus, in terms of now transferring that to the experience of a live person in this world. It's a different dimension.
I understand. So I'm sorry to interrupt you. Going on your example of the fetus.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the womb, that fetus is in a universe.
Right.
And that fetus's universe is obviously different from the universe that we live in.
Correct.
Okay. Is the fetus not doing any type of learning in the fetus? And is it not, when it comes out of the fetus, going to do whatever type of learning happens in this universe as well? I don't think, how does he lose? Maybe if he's taught the Torah in the fetus and then he's tapped and he forgets it, I don't know that he lost it, he just forgot it.
Right.
But that transfers.
Right, so Chazal are telling us something also. By that, Chazal telling us that the fetus has the opportunity that the Torah, which we have, is also given to him, is taught to him, right? Now, one of the reasons is, and the question is why, one of the basic questions is why teach it to him and why make him forget, Okay? So the answer to that question is, so at least when he tries to learn it here in this world, it'll make it easier. Meaning, even though he may not consciously remember it, right, there's been a subconscious impression made upon him. So it's a little bit easier for him to get. Because also, we have to realize that Torah is in essence something which is not of this world. It's something which is spiritual, something which is above and beyond this world. Right? So when a person's in a state of a fetus and not yet fully physical, he's somewhat physical, not yet fully physical, so he has a closer relationship to the Torah in a certain way than even we do. Right? So it's an opportune time to program the Jewish person, the Jewish soul, with the Torah. You can program the Jewish soul, the Jewish person with the Torah at that time much easier. So when they now come into this world, even though they'll forget it because if they remember it, but what's the point? There's no effort, there's no endeavor, there's no striving to understand it, to know Torah. And we have to do that. That's part of our reward by putting forth efforts and trying to understand the Torah. If we would have it on a platter, we wouldn't have that effort, and we wouldn't have the reward for the effort, right? So therefore we have to forget it, but it allows us to have that impression, which is subconscious at least, right? That we can learn it at least a little bit easier, right? So there is again, even from our existence in this dimension, in this world, to the next step, to the next world, we do take something from this world and it does carry with us to the next world.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But a very good question.
Well, there were stories like this from the Rabbanim, that there were babies that were born and they missed, and they didn't hit the baby and they gave them.
To make it all come out, open up,
No, opposites.
to make him forget.
Yeah, it happens. It happens
Okay.
once, but
It wasn't so long ago. I think it was a mice not so long ago.
it happens. It happens. They miss, they were busy. The Malachim are busy. McDonald's.
One slip through, man.
Go to McDonald's. Not all the time you have a chasa on the. Sometimes it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
כי אין מסכת וחשבון ודת וחכמו ושואל אשר ההולך שמה. יצא לומר כי אחר המיטה אלו שרוצה לעשות מצוות להשלים מה שחסר כאן או להתעסק בדבר הרשות, חשבונות ושאר עסקי הגוף, אין זה בידו. כי ביום ההוא עבדו עשתונותיו וכל חשבונותיו, ואין לו באותו זמן מעשה וחשבון כלל, ולא לדעת חוכמה להוציאו אל הפועל. על כן יש לך לעשות כל הטוב שתוכל בעולם הזה, ועוד שיש לך כוח ורשות לעשות. וזה שאמר בתחילה הכתוב, כל אשר תמצא בידך לעשות, כוחך עשה. קודם...
So that basically is telling you don't waste your time. Like, this is the time to do it. Like, if you could be in Fort Knox for 24 hours, right? So you'd be a fool to go to sleep during those 20 hours, right? 24 hours. You'd be up all night pulling anything out you can. President Bush gives you a telegram, says you have permission to take anything out of Fort Knox that you can carry out with your own hands, not with a wheelbarrow. You have 24 hours to do that. If a person would sleep, he'd be a fool. They say some tzaddikim on Shabbos that they would not sleep at all on Shabbos because they would want to learn the whole time, because Shabbos is a special time to get so much more siyata d'shmaya, so much help, and there's so much more reward for the Torah that you learn on Shabbos. They wouldn't want to sleep on Shabbos.
קודם שיחסר לך זמן עשה כל טוב שתאכל בעוד שאתה בכוחך, ומפני שזה יתחייב האדם שישתדל מצוות בעולם הזה, שהוא עולם מעשה, ולא העולם הגמול, כדי שיטול שכרו בעולם הבא, שהוא עולם הגמול ולא עולם מעשה. כמו שדרשו חז"ל, עבודה זרה, ג' מי שטרח בערב שבת יאכל בשבת, מי שלא טרח מהיכן הוא יחן.
That's right. That's what Chazal said. We mentioned that's from the Gemara Gora Zora, there's the Pesichta. Right, this rule is like Erev Shabbos, you're going to be put forth Eretz on Erev Shabbos, you have what to eat on Shabbos. If you don't work on Erev Shabbos, so you're going to be left out. Good, so the main point is not to waste time. That was our shot. Okay, we'll start the next year in a few minutes.
שכחת.
Good.